Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Well, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 201 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know there are lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you letting me be one of them today. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I would love for you to take a screenshot of you listening to it and share it on your socials, and maybe even tag me. I'm at Jen Donovan on just about every platform, and that would be super cool to get to know you a little bit better as well. Of course, you can find the show notes for this episode at all the W's social media and marketing.com.au/201. Before I get started, did you have a listen to last week's episode? It was my 200th. Thank you to everyone who reached out and sent emails and texted me and DM'd me to say congratulations on 200. It truly warmed my heart and meant so much. I still must admit I'm basking in the glory a little bit of doing 200 episodes. Never thought I'd get there. So I really feel that it's a little bit of an achievement for me. I'd love you to go back and have a listen though about the things I've learned doing 200 episodes, and also the really cool questions that people asked me to answer on that episode. But anyway, you wouldn't believe it. Today's episode is actually a first. I know, 200 episodes in and I still get to do firsts. I'm pretty cool and amazing on that as well. Today I have two guests on. I don't think I've ever had two guests on the podcast before. So a brand new experience for all of us. But my guests this week are Nikki and Ness, and they have a business called Business Together. They do business coaching for women in business. Ness is a money coach, and Nikki's superpower is all around sales. I seriously enjoyed talking to these ladies. It was such a great chat. I know this episode is a little bit longer than normal, but I know that there is heaps of gold in here for you. So take a listen to my chat with Nikki and Ness from Business Together. I know you're going to love it. I'm really excited to have two guests on the podcast, like I mentioned before. So Ness and Nikki, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great.
Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. It's been a long time since I've interviewed two people at once. So hopefully my interview skills go that far. For my amazing audience who perhaps haven't come across you ladies before, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your business?
For sure. I'm happy to kick us off. So I'm Ness and I'm one half of Business Together. Nikki and I came together in business in quite a funny story, actually. We did coach training together a long time ago, and then we have followed each other's business journeys, and we shared the same business coach for a few years, and decided we'd be accountability buddies for each other in 2020. So we went off to Noosa, and we had this amazing location for a retreat, mapped out all of our business plans, and then over a bottle of champagne just went, what would you do if you could do anything in the world? And that's where the seeds were born for Business Together. So for me, having been a leadership coach for a number of years, I've really stepped into this money coach space where I help people to be able to set and achieve their financial goals, looking at mindset, behaviors, and a little bit of a twist of systems. And then, of course, Nikki, I might hand over to you to let everybody know what your superpower is.
Superpower. Thank you so much, Ness. Yes, Nikki here. So great to be here. Thank you, Jen, for having us, and to your amazing audience for taking the time to listen to us. So I am a sales and business growth coach, and I like to say that I help business owners embrace not only the heart, but also the art of selling. So it is about understanding the skills, how to create really effective, great sales conversations, and also what are the systems and processes that you need to have in your business So you've got the freedom and flexibility to step back from your business, because one of the things that Ness and I see so often is that the business owner gets stuck in the business doing the particularly when it comes to sales, or looking at then, Ness's piece around cash flow management, etc. So we're really about helping you create a profitable business that you absolutely adore, and you still have time to enjoy life outside of work. Jen, I wonder if you found business owners have the same problem as well, being stuck in their businesses instead of on their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who's probably a long time listener will probably think, oh my God, don't bring it up. Don't get her on her high horse about working in your business as opposed to on your business again. So yes, no, I find it myself, like, I have a business coach, and that's one of the things that is her job, is to keep me on the straight and narrow, because, I've been known to be a bright, shiny object chaser in the past. It's like, oh, I could do this. It's like, yeah, you could, but should you? It's like, oh, darn, there's that question again. So absolutely. And I really sort of relate to your story about, your champagne. I changed my total business life from law to retail over 2 bottles of wine with my best friend quite some years ago. So I have one of those very hilarious stories as well. I just wanted to ask you, your business is called Business Together. How did that come about? And were you surprised? And I guess I asked this quite, because of my story, were you surprised the domain was free?
Yeah.
You know how it came about, which is kind of funny and something that we don't recommend to people. But initially, because we had our own separate businesses, whenever we got together to talk about working together and creating a business, we called it B2, which was baby number 2, right?
Yeah.
Because our first business was our first baby. And so I don't like that reference. But anyway, we narrowed it down to, we'll have our B2 meeting. And then we got to a point where we just said, we're going to have to come up with a business name, and we are not good at coming up with business names. And then so we started going, well, could we be B2, Business Together? Why don't we try that? So we got Business Together Global, which I think is pretty cool, because that's future direction. But that did surprise us, because it's actually a really cool business name.
Yeah, agree. And it's evolved so much from there. And I agree with Ness around, I'm almost a little bit cringy, because we also say to business owners, your business is not your baby. And it's something that we also realize, we don't want to look at our businesses as being our baby, because there's that whole analogy or reality of making a business really successful. And a great measure of that is that it's saleable, whether you want to sell the business or not. Having it in a position where it is sellable and for a profit and a great number is really important. And we don't sell our babies. So that is definitely the truth of the story and where we were at. But it's not everyone that gets to hear that story. And absolutely, Business Together has just there's been so much more meaning that has come with that over the time that we've had Business Together, because we are about bringing women and people in business together. We are always saying, I love doing business together, to each other, and it's really creating this community. And it is about, how are we doing business together? And every single way that we serve and help, whether it's community, paid or unpaid, it is about doing business together in a really impactful way.
Yeah,
The other thing that it does recognize for us is our style of coaching and mentoring is about, we're not here to tell you how to do business. We're here because we know intuitively, what's best for your business. We guide you around our methodologies and, all of that, our expertise. So we're about, how do we do business together with you so that your business thrives? So there's so many layers of meaning that have come about, but I really love it. And I think it's a really good representation of how Nikki and I work together, and therefore how we work with our clients.
I think that's lovely. Although you do put my question to shame, because I was just interested in knowing, whether you were surprised in the domain being free, because when I broke up with my, I had a previous marketing business, and when that partnership broke, it was just like, oh, what am I going to call my business? And as my my listeners will know, I simply went and, started typing in domain names, and socialmediaandmarketing.com.au was free. And I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. All right, that's the name of my business. And then I went to register it and it was taken. So I tacked Australia on the end of it. And, there you go. But sometimes, serendipitous, isn't that what they say? It was just supposed to be. So anyway, that was the reason why I was asking, because I'm like, oh, wow, you're only just a new business and that domain was free. That's super interesting for, maybe, a domain nerd like myself. But anyway,
and there you go. You had a whole story and history behind it that you tapped into that you didn't even realize was there. No. The importance of effective questioning. You just never know what you're going to find.
Oh, look, I should cut all my garbage out and just leave that sentence in, shouldn't I? So, Ness, I really wanted to dig in with you. You talked about how you help your clients sort of set and achieve financial goals. I find as a marketing business coach that finances come after social media, after building an email list, after, and it's kind of this almost, and it's not a good afterthought, but when I start to talk finances with my clients, like, let's have a look at leads and what's, your lifetime value of your client, and their eyes go blank. So where do they start with you? What sort of questions do you get asked, or what's the biggest pain point that they come to when they are coming to you for that sort of financial goal set and achieving?
Absolutely. Great question. And I think, it does vary, but one of the places that we need to start at is the foundations of the business. Have we even set up the structure of the business in the right way for us to achieve our goals, our vision, what we want to get out of the business?
And that grows with a business, doesn't it? That's not what you started at, isn't necessarily where you might be in 2022.
Absolutely not. But what we really need to take into account is, and we said it earlier, the future of the business. So thinking about, how could I sell this, even if you don't want to, what's going to make it profitable? So that discussion has to happen. I think a lot of the philosophy is, income minus expenses equals profit. I really like to look at it, income plus, income plus profitability equals expenses, right? Mm-hmm. So that we set a profit goal in our business and we're focused on that, and we're taking a wage from the business, which doesn't happen a lot. Mm-hmm. And you're right, there are other expenses that come in place as you're starting up a business, but you'd be surprised at how many people have been in business for years and still aren't paying themselves a wage.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised, but yes, some of our listeners might be surprised. Yes,
that's right, because it's a whole mental block, right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people think, well, it's like life. When I was in my career, my salary went up, my expenses went up. My salary goes up, my expenses go up. So I think in business we can have that mentality around, well, I'm earning this much, therefore I'm spending this much, but we're not including a wage into that. So really, I think the key area is cash flow. A lot of people come with cash flow issues, and in small business, that's a pain, that point for a lot of people, the ups and downs and trying to even it out and map it out. And the conversation around paying ourselves, and also the profitability piece, and making sure that the business is actually profitable, not just having this great income, but then expenses are matching it. And that's why I don't fall into that whole hype around, I've got $1 million business. It's
no, I hate it. 6 figures, 7 figures. Yeah, sure.
But my follow-up question is, what's your profit margin? Yes. Because it needs to be something profitable. And I think, whether this is across the board, but particularly for women, that's something we come into business to be able to make a difference. And probably, that's for men and women, but that whole ability to have an impact out there, we also need to make sure we're impacting our own lives. And I think that's where that money discussion is really, really important.
One little, I guess, story that I have around money, which I haven't disclosed before to anyone. So my other side hustle, so Spend With Us, Buy From a Bush business, that, probably isn't a side hustle anymore. It's definitely, running 50-50 with my social media and marketing business. But we put in for a, and I can't think of the word right now, a capital, like not a capital grant, like a, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Anyway, we put in for a application for someone to give us some capital to help grow our business, and we were actually knocked back, and we were really quite surprised because our figures are just that good. And the feedback we got was, yeah, your figures are great, but you're not taking a wage. I was like, oh, so for them, it didn't look like a good investment because the people weren't actually taking themselves a wage. That was a really big moment. Like, I've always taken a wage in any of my other businesses, but because we'd classified this as a bit of a side hustle, we hadn't done it. And we missed out in that round of capital funding. There you go. I knew the word would come to me. But yeah, and that was a really interesting learning point for me, because I guess, you know, in business, we're always learning, but that was something that I learnt and should have known, but definitely learnt again. So
because I don't think it matters, and that's the thing I'm finding with the clients we work with. It doesn't matter how long we've been in business. If our foundations aren't strong from the start, you know, we've had a business owner who's run her business for 10 years, and she said, I wish I had have known this 10 years ago, because you know, where could I be different? Like, you can't change the past, but it's just fundamentally, I would say to people, if you're uncertain and you aren't all over those numbers, doesn't matter how long you've been in business, reach out and get help. Because it matters so much. It matters to the profitability and ongoing nature of our business, but it also matters to us and our families and what we want to do with our income and our wealth. So
yeah, absolutely. Such wise words. And I guess, Nikki, being the person who, you know, is all about selling and teaching people the art of sales, that was probably my question for you, because that's actually a saying that's thrown around quite often, is, you know, talking about the art of sales. So what is the art of sales?
Yeah. Another great question. I love it. And it can be quite a common term. The reason that I resonate with it is because there is a lot of resistance to selling. There's a lot of business owners that feel icky, or they don't want to be pushy or greedy or fake. You know, sales has a bad rap. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
For the majority, across the board, to generalize, sales has a real bad rap. So, you know, when you think of selling techniques as an example, the common image that's conjured up is the old school used car salesman, or you know, again, no disrespect to car salespeople, or the super schmicko real estate agents. You know, there's this image that comes up that a lot of people don't want to be like. And for me, I think the thing about sales is that at its core, at its heart, it is about having a really good conversation with somebody. That's actually all sales is. And I like the expression, the art of sales, because it's more like it's a craft. It's more like you can be creative with it. You can be authentic with it. You can actually enjoy it. Everyone that's listening, I want you to hear me. If you do feel a little bit like, oh, sales is the worst part of having a business, the other myth I want to bust is that if you're a business owner, you are in sales, full stop, that's it. Just own it, be okay with it, find a way to embrace it. And I think, you know, for me, I like the art of sales because it implies that there can be so much more than something we just really have to do and perhaps don't want to do. And I like putting it with the heart, because the heart is that aspect, that piece of who you are. And it's not about being, you know, woo-woo or too fluffy. It's about being authentic. And at the end of the day, if you can have a really good conversation with somebody, if you can identify their needs and help them with a problem that they have, or a need that they desire that they're wanting, or a need to fulfill, then you've got it. And that doesn't, you know, that's in-person verbal selling, that's online sales, that transcends across all different types of business models and all different types of business environments as well, because it could be written, it could be your copy on your website, it could be, like I said, transactional conversations or more long-term conversations, depending on your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all my audience has gone, really? That's exactly what Jen says about marketing. If you're in business, you're in the business of marketing. Yeah. Make marketing fun, just so that, you know, it doesn't become a sometimes activity, it becomes a priority. So absolutely, I think that's why sales and marketing go so well together, or marketing and sales. And I think, you know, this podcast is probably not the place for the argument between you and I as to what comes first, the marketing or the sales, but you know, it's definitely out there.
No, absolutely. Look, I actually couldn't agree with you more. more. And as somebody who I've had over 10 years experience in media advertising and different marketing fields, and but from a sales context, sales and marketing sales, they go hand in hand. They are so combined. In fact, so I think we're on the same side is what I'm going to say there. What I'm going to say there, Jen. It's okay. There's no debate. We have to incorporate and consider both, because there's actually, I believe, an element of sales in marketing and an element of marketing in sales. So, you know, where does one meet and where does one end? It's a beautiful infinity circle, you know, if you will.
Oh my goodness, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. So ladies, within your business together model, so I know on your homepage, and it's a conversation you often have, is all around that sort of framework that you've built for small businesses. So can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Sure. Do you want to take that, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have created a framework called the True North Wheel. So all of the work that we do with our clients is about finding your true north in business. That's for women in business. That's for male-led businesses. Overall, we really believe that if you can find your true north, then you will create a sustainable, long-term, successful business.
What do you call a true north, though? What does that mean?
Absolutely great question. So what we know is that businesses will, okay, so that is it the ABS? There's statistics out there that show that 60% of businesses will fail within the first 3 years, and that number can jump up to over 95% in the first 5 years. Now, the main reason that businesses fail is because business owners, and you would know this, Jen, they don't upskill in different areas. They don't upskill in the areas of, say, marketing, sales, and finance. Oh my gosh, ding, 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 we're the trifecta right here. There is a point for me explaining this. I'm going to explain this in the True North Wheel, in a moment. So that's what the research and the statistics show. The experience that Ness and I have had over decades working with different businesses in different environments, including our coaching businesses, but outside of that, it proves that, it shows that. But the other aspect of this is the rate of burnout, is the rate of exhaustion, is the rate of actually not being able to sustain the business models that's created. So with all of this in mind, there is a purpose and a point to this. When Ness and I really got together and said, okay, well, how will we create this impact with business together? That's where True North in Business was born and created, because our business model always looks at business growth and how you make money, but it's creating a business on your own terms. So sales and marketing and lead gen and business growth. How do you manage your money? In other words, create your own personal wealth, your mindset, as well as profitability in the business and cash flow, which is what Ness talks about. But there's a third piece, and that's the prioritized life piece. And the prioritized life piece are things like living aligned with your values. We believe that you don't need to focus on work-life balance. You just need to focus on the True North Wheel, because when you focus on building a business on your own terms, making sure it's profitable and working on your money mindset, and equally prioritizing your life, living by values, enjoying life, time with family, the opposite of burnout, that's when you create a really sustainable business. And just imagine a Venn diagram. Okay, we have a Venn diagram we can provide, because where all those three areas overlay in the middle, there's a little star, and that star is your True North in Business. And guaranteed, when one of those areas is off point, that's where that True North Wheel gets a bit wonky.
Yeah.
So beautiful. That, my friends, is the True North Wheel. Ness, how did I do?
I loved it.
Jen, did you come on the journey?
I did come on the journey, and I even imagined what the wheel looked like as it was tipping, because mine has been tipping. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. I really love that. I think that is just such a good visualization for a podcast. So thank you so much for that explanation. That was great.
We usually have an image. So I'm like, how do I describe this? Very
yeah, beautiful. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, because you are in the business of coaching and, obviously helping small business owners. I know that you only started this business together, in 2000, but 2020.
Wow, we've been in business together for 22 years.
2020, sorry. How have you seen business owners change since COVID, or do you think there has been some changes? This is something that I am super interested in. So I guess this is a bit of a selfish question for me to be asking your thoughts around this.
Well, I mean, I think for us, this business, we sort of seeded the plan to the business and spent 2020 figuring out whether we were going to do it. And then we jumped in last year. So I think we're a really good example of what's happened out of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting back and making some big choices in life around, was the business that the businesses we had previous to the one that we've come together in, were they fulfilling, our values? Were they aligning to what we wanted to achieve? Were they helping us to achieve our vision in life? And then was it something that we could see ourselves doing passionately and happily into the future? So that whole reassessing, what do we want out of life? And what I've noticed with the people that we've been working with, for some of them, it's been about moving out of the city and away to the country and having a different lifestyle, and, the choices that come with that and the differences that makes for them, and still running a business, but running it differently. I think also, some of the industries that have been hit really hard, tourism, hospitality. So having the resilience to get through that, and then sitting back and going, well, hang on a minute, this isn't just about making money. This is about, how's it impacting my whole lifestyle? How can I still spend time with family? So I think from what I've been seeing, it is people questioning whether this is the business they want into the future. And also, having had that time at home and the ability to be connecting with family, how do they continue to create a business that allows them to be there for their family and present? Perhaps not homeschooling, but, at least having that, I'm not just married to my job all the time. And I think, certainly there's been its own impact around the great resignation and all that kind of stuff about paid work. But that's where I'm seeing some choices that are coming up and being made differently, and people wanting to have this ability to, like, they do call it work-life balance, but as Nikki said, we tend to believe it's about, are you living your values? And you can do that through focusing on business and life. So I'd say that's where I'm seeing it. But Nikki, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that. There's also a really good book called Cult Status by Tim Duggan, I think his surname is, which was actually written just on the cusp of pre-pandemic. But even at that point, he talks about the importance of businesses making impact, because if we also look at consumers, buyers, our audiences, they want to purchase or align with brands and businesses that are making an impact. So I think that has absolutely been elevated to a massive importance. I think what's interesting is also to say, obviously, the landscape of how we do business has changed. I mean, we were saying that Ness and I, 2 years in almost, and since we'd seeded the idea and we'd seen each other at one point, it was once live, or twice if we include in person, live terminology, in person, since that January of 2020. You've marked me up, Jen, with my dates now, with my calendar years. So we can build this a lot more flexibility, freedom. I'm noticing that there's a bit of a divide now that we can do in person. There are some people that are loving going back to networking events in person and embracing that, and others that are saying, you know what, I'm pretty comfortable. I want to kind of stay and do the online networking, because there's so much more opportunity for online networking. I think something to consider is that the reality is that everybody, my dog agrees, has been through a lot. And, people who were once perhaps more naturally extroverted, or they're a bit hesitant to get back out there. There's just so many variables. I think it's important to look at where is the individual person at, and nurture and honor to help them really look at what's the new landscape now. It's not new normal anymore, but in a way we're redefining what the hybrid landscape looks like.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think that we quite know all the intricacies of that just yet, but yes. And I certainly do 110% agree about the business with the purpose. I've got a Facebook group with 360,000 people that is pure evidence of that, because people want to buy from people such as, rural and regional small businesses that have just been through so much in the last 2.5 years. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you, because I do think that, money and sales, or money mindset and sales, chicken and the egg type of thing. So I do know that you both think that they are just as important as each other, but I just sort of, how do you handle that in a business way, or, handle that with your clients, setting it up that they are as equally important in order to get a profitable business that you love and that you want to wake up to every single day?
Yeah, you have some great questions on this podcast. I love it. Look, I think that what I notice is that a lot of business owners, when the money's not there, their initial thought goes to, how do I get more money in the business?
Yes.
And so they say, I need a sales coach, or I need to spend money on marketing, or, like their focus solely is on bringing the leads in, bringing the money in, like there's lots and lots of focus on that. And so where I come in to have the discussion is to say, well, if you've been running a business for a little while, why don't we also look at the profitability of your business? When was the last time you actually pulled apart what your service offer is, how much you're charging for that, and what the real cost of that is? When was the last time that you sat down and looked at your profit and loss statement and just each month chose a line out of that and had a look to see whether you could save money on that? Whether it's a cost that you could eliminate, or if it's doing really well, what about bumping it up? So there's more than one way to become profitable in business. So yes, make more money, but we need to manage that money and keep that money there, and have that mindset that it's not just here to pay for things, but it's here to be able to hold on to and actually have a purpose for me as well. So I think people generally, like I said, I'm generalizing, but in business, I think they go first point, how do I get more sales? And where I want them to be thinking is, when was the last time I looked at how I manage my money? Because there actually could be some money to be found there.
Yes. And I would say one of the biggest things with that is subscriptions.
Yes.
These little things that we tick and they just keep getting debited out of our bank account. And we're like, I don't even use that anymore.
I've got an embarrassing story on that one. I think, a few years ago, the business, I signed up for something called Pretty Links. It's an American thing for a WordPress site. It cost me like $150 Australian or something. I never used it. And then 12 months later, forgot about it, and then had this $150 come out of my account. I'm like going, oh. So I think sometimes feeling the pain of those, and the thing is, if people bury their head and they're not looking at it, they're not even going to know that came out of their account.
Exactly.
So we are bleeding money. Business owners are bleeding money if they're not checking it. So that's my...
Yes, leaky buckets. Fill those bucket holes. Nikki, how does it sit with you as to that whole question of, I guess money and sales being on an even keel for a profitable business?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Nessa's point, obviously, I think it's important. Everything that Ness said, I support, agree, and is really key for profitability. I also think the lead generation component, that is a really, of course, an important part, but also it could be, which is kind of in a similar vein to what Ness said, sometimes it's not about more leads, but it's also about the quality of the sales conversations.
Yes.
So it might not be that it's the quantity is not great, but how can you focus on increasing the conversion of what's coming in? Are you having those good quality sales conversations? Are you attracting the right types of clients so that it's a no-brainer for them to work with you when it comes in? So I think, equally across sales and money, it's not always about more. It's about what can we do better with what we already have, smarter, be a little bit more deliberate and focused. The other thing I would say is that sales and money is so connected. There's a lot of crossover in our conversations, that Ness and I have. For example, if you have got limiting beliefs around money or around self-worth, guess what? That's subconsciously holding you back from your sales conversations. So it's a very deliberate thing that we have both the sales and money, and we do talk about it being equal in different ways, but they're also very connected, similar to what we talked about with the sales and marketing. You know, there's a massive connection there, and one area can be holding you back in the other. The final thing I'd say around this, because we do often get asked, you know, okay, that's great, all those 3 areas are really important: prioritize life, manage money, make money. Where do I start, or what's the most important, or how do I know where to focus on? And the thing is that this is the wheel. So as long as you have foundational elements in place for all 3, sometimes you're going to have to tap into that prioritize life bucket or section of the wheel a little bit more, because you've got more stresses in your life and you have to focus more on micro moments, or having a day off because you're sick, or whatever it might be. So you may then have more focus there, or you might then, you know, to Nessa's point, have a bit more focus on the money because the leads are coming in. Let's look at how we can cut some costs in the business. So we never want to take the foot off the pedal entirely for any of the areas, but you will find that there's ebbs and flows. And we do talk about the flow between the 3 of them to find that elusive balance that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, the elusive balance, 100%. And just before we wrap up, I guess, you know, I really, really love you to give my listeners maybe just one tip. Like, I guess, Ness, if I go to you first, if that's okay, you know, if they are struggling with their money or even their money mindset, which Nikki sort of just briefly tapped into there, what's one thing that you could give to my audience, or a piece of advice?
I think that one of the things, like if we go to the mindset piece, it really is about questioning our belief system.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, whenever you say, I would do that, but I would have more money in my account, but this is stopping me. I'd be able to manage money better if, you know, and anything after that is kind of our excuse or reason or our belief that comes up. So if you're not where you want to be right now, I think having a really hard look at what is it, the belief that's going with that. So what am I believing to be true to have this result in my business right now? And really exploring that and just questioning it. Like, is that an absolute truth? Could it be different? Could there be another way of looking at this? And just to help get out of that rut around, you know, whatever's coming up for the business owner at that time. Sometimes you need help to be able to do that. And that could be just a trusted business best buddy, or it could be reaching out to support through a coach or a mentor, just to be able to start to uncover what some of those little funky beliefs are and myths that we might have grown up believing that aren't necessarily true.
Yeah, beautiful. I love the word myth. There are a lot of myths out there. Maybe that's a whole other podcast episode for sure. Nikki, what about yourself? If someone's really, I guess, has that limited belief around sales, or has that real roadblock against sales? And I know from even just from, you know, my business and marketing coaching, you know, I was onboarding a new client just last week, and we were talking about sales. And, you know, Instagram is probably the easiest thing to look at, because you can see someone's grid, and I'm like, I can't see a post that says buy this, or do you want to do this? Do you want to like there's been no sales strategy whatsoever. So I get that a lot of people have roadblocks for their sales strategies or their sales conversations. So can you give us maybe just one tip? I know that's a lot to ask around sales.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump on Nessa's sort of theme where she talked about, you know, think about, I would be insert blank around money, but, and that uncovers a limiting belief. Another reframe that you can use for sales, if you do feel a bit uncomfortable, or you're thinking, oh, do I have something on my Instagram? Could be, ask yourself, what if this was fun? What if I enjoyed this? Because and again, I've got so many different resources to help make the conversation authentic and turn it around. And, you know, one of the things that come up is around make it about them, not about you. So if we feel icky about selling, it's often because we're making it about ourselves. I don't want to be this. I don't want to come across. But if we make it about them, and if we think genuinely, how can I help this person, then we're actually doing a disservice if we don't sell to them. Mm-hmm. So the internal questions that you want to ask yourself is, do they have a need? And if you don't know, guess what? You've got to ask some questions, because don't ever sell before you know if they have a need, please, my friends. So do they have a need? Can your service or solution or product help them? And if the answer is yes and yes, you're doing a disservice if you don't talk to them. So if you feel icky, ask yourself, what if this was fun? What if I enjoyed it? What would need to change? And it would be really interesting to see what the answer to that question is. And you've got to do the internal work.
I love that. The whole, you're doing them a disservice. I often, talk about that, where it's, but imagine the difference you could make to their lives. Like if you just had this conversation, not talking about a sales conversation, just have a conversation about how you can solve their problem. And, you're being a little bit self-centered if you don't want to.
Yes, you are. Hear us.
You could change their lives and you're not doing it.
Yes. Yeah, the thing is that nothing has meaning but the meaning we give it. Sales is a word that, I know I said this earlier, it's been built up to something that we avoid, or a lot of people avoid. It's just a word that we've attached meaning. So call it something else. It's not sales. Call it something else if that's what you need to do to have that open conversation, and stop being so selfish and not telling people about how you can help them.
I think some of it comes down to mindset a little bit, like what Ness was saying about money. Like I can think of 2 instances straight away where someone has sold something to me and I'm like, nah. Not even if you were the last person on earth would I buy it from you, because it has felt so salesy and icky. And I think those experiences stay with us, and we think that that's what people think about us. Whereas, it's not if it's authentic and if it's, problem solving and things like that. So I think some of it, again, we have internalized because that's how we've been sold to and haven't liked it.
And I think the danger of that is that we generalize. Like we generalize into, because I had that horrible experience, anyone who sells is icky, right? And therefore I must be. And which is why I say we have to keep questioning those beliefs, because, have I ever sold something where the person was just, thank you so much? Yes. I bought something today where somebody helped me and I'm like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we've got to turn it around. And that's why questioning those little sneaky little beliefs that pop up is so important across not just money, but everything in business and life.
So true.
So Jen, we actually also have a Mindset of Sales playbook. So if any of your listeners want to get their hands on that, you can then apply that to different areas, and it guides you through working on your sales mindset and money mindset. So that's another little tool that we're happy to share.
Yeah. Beautiful. Ladies, this has been such a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this, and I've enjoyed meeting you both and hearing about your business and your expertise. For my amazing listener who may want to get in contact, where's the best place to find you?
Sure. Well, you can head it. Oh,
you go, Ness.
So we're on Instagram. We're under B2 Business Together, and Facebook, and also our website is all the W's with businesstogether.com.au.
Beautiful. I will have all those links to those. I will have those links in the show notes. And I promise you'll be able to find them in there. Otherwise, ladies, thank you so much again for coming on. It's been such a great conversation.
Thank
you, Jen, for having us. And
thanks for listening.
For having these conversations. Yes. And to everybody who's joined us today.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow or next week or next month.
Beautiful. Thank you. So did you enjoy that chat? I'm sure you did. These ladies had some massive pieces of business gold, didn't they? So the question to you is, where is your true north? It was an interesting question, wasn't it? It was an interesting explanation by Nikki and an interesting question. But anyway, something to ponder on for sure. Thanks for listening again. If you want to get in touch with Nikki and Ness, then you head to the show notes and find all the links there. The show notes, of course, are at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/201. Otherwise, let's stay connected. Come and join my Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group if you're not already in there, or come and find me on another platform. I'm, of course, on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And, of course, I would love to get to know you a little bit better. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the start.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.